What's happening, people? Wow, World Cup comes to an end, everyone, and what a sensational tournament. Phenomenal event that culminated in a really classic final. We've just witnessed Argentina defeating France on penalty kicks after it finished 3-3 following extra time, and it really was a fitting end to what's been a gripping tournament that's had so many stories, subplots, fluctuations. We've seen comeback stories. We've seen teams that were on the brink of elimination somehow overcome that hurdle to progress to the next round. We've seen a lot of the emerging nations start to assert their credentials and their status on football, like the likes of the United States, Japan, South Korea, and Morocco, most notably. Those four teams, especially, really showcasing a leveling up from the pack and really closing the gap on some of the more established nations. So it's been a phenomenal event, and obviously a fairy tale ending for Lionel Messi to win the World Cup for Argentina and to really rubber stamp his glittering career with the most noteworthy title that he's accrued in what's been a well decorated and long standing career that he has presided over. Incredible stuff. Mbappe getting the golden boot, what a phenomenal performance he put in throughout the tournament, but also the big moments that he stepped up for in the final, the two penalties and the volley. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, it was just something special. Just the final, people, just to talk about the final first of all. It was an incredible match, and Argentina, as they have done throughout the tournament, able to assert their tempo onto the match. They tended to play quite a physical game style, which I feel enabled them to gain a sense of authority over the other team, in this case France, so they could allow their flair players to get on the ball, the likes of Messi, the likes of McAllister, who had an excellent game in midfield, just constructing passes and also being the link between the sort of middle third and the attacking third. I thought Alexis McAllister was a really important player for Argentina, and Argentina get out to a 2-goal lead, a Messi penalty, and then a wonderful team move, Messi putting McAllister through in the inside right channel, McAllister playing a well-weighted pass across to Angel Di Maria, who converts his finish over the onrushing Hugo Lloris to make it 2-0. And then Didier Deschamps makes a couple of fantastic substitutions, really showing his tactical awareness and game management ability. So he brings on Thuram and Muani, and both of these guys were able to be effective. I believe it was Muani who won the first penalty, Otamendi bundling him over. Mbappe steps up, cool as you like, picks his spot for the penalty, 2-1. And then, for me, the goal of the match, a phenomenal team move. So Rabiot chips this ball forward, and Mbappe, a fantastic header, just to lay it off to, can't remember who the player was that he laid it off to. It might have been Thuram. And then Thuram returns the pass. Mbappe timed his run so well, stayed on side, and then the volleyed finish was just iconic. And he got the score level at 2-2. And at that point, I was thinking, wow, France have momentum. But just like in their quarterfinal against the Netherlands, Argentina were able to somehow put a stop to the momentum of their opponents, who had got back to level playing after being 2-0 down, and were able again to just maybe deaden the tempo a little bit, make it a bit bitty, put in a couple of strong challenges, tackles that maybe upset the rhythm of France somewhat. But ultimately they were also able to demonstrate their own flair and their own quality, and they got themselves a third goal. Messi showing his instinctive qualities in the box to just pounce on a loose ball and convert it, having obviously after the goal line check, it was clearly over the line, 3-2 to Argentina, and then in that closing moment we get another penalty for France and Mbappe converts once more, and the penalty shootout goes in the way of Argentina with Emiliano Martinez with his usual antics, dancing, a little bit of gamesmanship tactics, but it worked, and ultimately Argentina pulled through and Messi gets his moment. And I loved it, people, when Messi picks up the trophy, the Jules Rimet, and he does that little dance on the podium. I love that, guy. And that was for me one of the highlights of the tournament. Lionel Messi with his dance moves on the podium, on the biggest stage in sport, arguably, getting that Jules Rimet trophy. So unbelievable stuff. Just a couple of other side notes that I really like, people, from the final. Ironically, one was the was the antics and animation of the French president in the stands. Like, I don't know anything about the French president. I don't follow French politics or any kind of politics, to be brutally honest, too closely. But just the way that this guy was like getting involved in the match, and when Mbappe scored, he was just on his feet and he was just kind of living every moment. And Mbappe himself, people, for me, really elevating himself as one of, if not the best player in the world as it stands in 2022. Like, over the course of a career, I think this World Cup signifies Lionel Messi's claim, for those that like these kinds of titles, to maybe be one of the greatest players ever. I mean, for me, I don't really think of things like that. I don't really think of things in terms of the greatest ever. But what I have appreciated about Mbappe is his rise to become one of the top players in the world. And from my point of view, people, he's my favourite player in the world. And that's how I always like to talk about these things, rather than the best. I talk about my favourite. Who do I really, really like? Who moves me most? And I think Mbappe is possibly that player because of his dynamism, his acceleration, his explosiveness, the way he can run with the ball at his feet, he can dribble, he can run without the ball, so he can make the run for the midfielder to pick the pass. He can, and his shooting is just so laser-like. He always picks the corner, and he's got a very brutal way of finishing his chances. It's just ruthless, and I just really rate Mbappe, people. And yeah, in terms of the final, I was delighted that he had his moment and obviously collected the golden boot along the way. So as I alluded to earlier, people, it's been a phenomenal tournament. Absolutely incredible. Just more than I think anyone could have hoped for. It had just about everything. There was so much excitement, so much, as I said before, people, jeopardy, where you didn't know if it was going to go one way or the other. It was tense and on a knife edge, so to speak, throughout. Even in the group stages, in that final round of matches, we saw in pretty much all of the groups, it came down to the very last moments of each game. I remember the Japan victory when they beat Spain and it sent home Germany. I remember in the dying moments, Son scored a goal. No, it wasn't Son. Son played the pass for another player. I think it was Hwang who scored for South Korea, and that sent Uruguay home. I think there was something similar with Belgium. Lukaku hit the post. I was so gutted for Lukaku in that moment, and then that unfortunately meant that Belgium went home. So there was so much happening, and yeah, it was just phenomenal, people, and absolutely loved every moment of it. Obviously, obviously each country will now have their own process of reflection at this point in proceedings. Just, do we want to go forward with the same coach? Do we want to change course? And England, just speaking from an English perspective for a moment, have obviously decided to stick with Gareth Southgate. Now, I was speaking with my family about this earlier, and for me, I'm on the fence with this one. I don't really have strong feelings either way, because I do think Southgate has done well in some aspects, and as one of my family members was telling me earlier, Southgate has done a wonderful job in cultivating a team spirit and eroding these club loyalty boundaries. So obviously you've got players from Man United, from Liverpool, from Arsenal, from Manchester City, from Tottenham, etc. And Southgate has been able, it seems, to create and cultivate a togetherness and a harmony amongst the group where everyone seems to get on, and it seems like they leave their club rivalries very much at the door. So that's been fantastic to see, and I do feel Southgate is improving with his tactical awareness. Like, for example, people, I think England took a front foot approach against France in that quarter-final, and he did make substitutions. And yes, for me though, people, the area Southgate needs to look at is maybe being a little bit less conscious of public perception, how people will perceive his decisions, and just go with the decision he feels is right for the moment. For example, Bukayo Saka was playing very well against France. He was probably England's best player, certainly one of them. And he takes Saka off and brings on Sterling. I'm kind of thinking in that situation, why not keep Saka on? Maybe before the match, you might have had it in your mind to just have these certain guys that you wanted to give minutes to and then take them off for another player. Why not respond to what you're seeing a little bit more? If you feel Saka is playing very well on the night, why not take off somebody different? And people have often said maybe there's a bit too much of a reluctance to maybe substitute off Harry Kane. And I think this is a fair comment, because as much as I really rate Harry Kane, I think he's a fantastic player, I don't think it should be seen as this bold message that you're taking off the England captain, you're taking off Harry Kane, it's like a big drama. I don't think it needs to be perceived like that. Certainly from Southgate's point of view, I think if you take off Kane in one match, it just means for whatever reason we want to try something different. Maybe we want to get Rashford through the middle. We might want to get a bit more speed and directness into England's play. We might want to see Foden go in as a false nine to try something different. It doesn't mean that you're forever abandoning that tactic of having Harry Kane as your primary focal point. It just means for that given match, maybe there's a moment to just be different, to do something like have Saka on the right, have Rashford on the left, have Callum Wilson down the middle, Maddison picking the passes in the centre, something like that, just to think, okay, it's completely fresh. It's completely fresh. We haven't seen that combination before, but hey, Maddison's been on form for Leicester this year. Rashford's finding his feet. Saka's been flying. Callum Wilson's on a high. He's got his England call-up. Why not throw in a bit of an original curveball into the mix? That's the only thing I'd say with Southgate, is just have a bit more imagination and spontaneity and just maybe reading the moment with things. Because if you just looked at England's players, I feel like certain players were on an upward trajectory with their confidence and with their form, and that's been maybe going on for the last 2 to 3 months. Maddison is a big example for Leicester. He's been flying. Saka for Arsenal's gone from strength to strength. Rashford, you feel, has found something, found some form. Foden has been hitting the ground running. Callum Wilson has been really firing on all cylinders. I'm not saying... Sorry guys, the battery just nearly is going. But I'm not saying that Harry Kane's form hasn't been going in this direction. But I just feel maybe with Kane, we know his level. His level's been consistent for years. Maybe Sterling's just going through a little bit of a difficult patch for Chelsea at the moment. Maybe Mount is going through a little bit of a tough time with Chelsea, or maybe an inconsistent patch. So why not go with the guys whose confidence is here, is going up? I think that's where Southgate needs to be a bit cuter with how he looks at things. Not maybe looking at things on paper and the statistics and everything like that, but just having a little hunch about who the guys that that are on it at the moment? Who are the guys that are in form? Those are the ones that I want to hang my hat on, maybe when it's the crunch time, because their momentum in their own personal journeys might carry us through as a collective. That's what I'm saying with Southgate, people. Maybe he needs to be a bit more cute about just reading the lie of the land, the context on how each player is performing. That's the big takeaway for me. It's just being a little bit more adaptable with how he's thinking about it. But ultimately, people, I want to make this a more general video talking about the fantastic tournament that we've just seen. As I mentioned, people, so many incredible stories witnessed. Morocco's run to the semi-final. I love that. I love their spirit, love their quality, love their interplays with their possession. Hakimi, Unahi, Ziyech, Boufal, En-Nesyri, all of these guys just impressed me so much for Morocco. Croatia showing a heart, a spirit. Luka Modric in midfield, Perisic playing so well. And yeah, so many other stories, people. Argentina, fully deserved winners. They've been knocking on the door for a long time, since they last won in 1986, and they claimed their title here in 2022. France, phenomenal. Love this French team, people, really do. I think they've got a lot of quality and style and composure in possession, and they'll be back. Can't wait, people, for the next editions of the international tournaments, the various regional events, be it the CONCACAF tournament, Copa America, the Euros, African Cup of Nations, Asia Pacific events. I'm going to be following all of it now, people, because I've got such an interesting insight of the global perspective following this World Cup. Okay, people, hope you enjoyed it, everyone, and shoot through your comments if you have any. And much love and peace as always, guys.